Child support is a legal and financial obligation imposed on a non-custodial parent to provide financial assistance for the upbringing of their child. While child support laws are intended to provide financial support for children, their implementation has had unintended negative consequences on the Black community. In this essay, I will examine how child support laws and their enforcement have had negative effects on the Black community, including economic and social disparities, and increased rates of incarceration. Economic disparities. Child support laws and their enforcement have contributed to economic disparities within the Black community. A significant number of Black men are unable to pay the child support they owe due to limited economic opportunities and systemic racism. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, Black men face substantial earnings disadvantages relative to white men, even when controlling for education and work experience. This wage gap contributes to the inability of Black men to pay child support and support their families. Moreover, the child support system is based on the assumption that the non-custodial parent has a steady income, which is not always the case for many Black men who are disproportionately represented in low-wage jobs or are unemployed. In such cases, child support payments are often set at levels that are unrealistic and unaffordable, leading to mounting arrears and legal penalties, further exacerbating their financial struggles. Furthermore, non-custodial parents who cannot afford to pay child support may have their driver's license suspended or be sent to jail for non-payment, making it even more difficult for them to obtain and maintain employment, which only perpetuates their inability to pay child support. This cycle of poverty and incarceration disproportionately affects Black men, further widening the economic gap between Black and white families. Social disparities. Child support laws and their enforcement also have social consequences for the Black community. When non-custodial parents are incarcerated or have their driver's license suspended, they become more isolated from their families and communities, leading to further social isolation and disconnection. Moreover, the punitive measures imposed by the child support system, such as wage garnishment and property seizure, can lead to resentment and anger, further straining relationships between parents and their children. In addition, child support laws have a gender bias that favors women over men. While child support is intended to support children, it can also be used as a tool for revenge and punishment against non-custodial fathers. The system has become weaponized in some cases, with mothers using the threat of child support enforcement to extract concessions from fathers, such as custody and visitation rights. This has contributed to the breakdown of families and has perpetuated negative stereotypes about Black fathers. Increased rates of incarceration. Child support laws and their enforcement have contributed to the increased rates of incarceration in the Black community. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, Black men are incarcerated at more than 5 times the rate of white men. Non-payment of child support is a major contributor to this disparity. Black men are more likely to be incarcerated for child support arrears, leading to further economic and social consequences for themselves and their families. Furthermore, incarceration itself has negative consequences on families and communities. Children with incarcerated parents are more likely to experience poverty, academic problems, and mental health issues. Moreover, the incarceration of a parent can lead to the loss of income, housing, and social support for the family, leading to further economic and social disparities. Conclusion. In conclusion, child support laws and their enforcement have had negative effects on the Black community, including economic and social disparities, and increased rates of incarceration. While child support laws are intended to provide financial support for children, their implementation has contributed to the perpetuation of poverty, social isolation, and incarceration. Reform of the child support system is necessary to address these issues, including more realistic payment plans, support for job training. The child support system has a complex history of racial discrimination, with significant implications for the Black community. One of the earliest iterations of child support laws was the putative father laws that emerged in the early 20th century. These laws were aimed at assigning financial responsibility to unmarried fathers, but they often relied on stereotypes of Black men as promiscuous and irresponsible. In the mid-20th century, the Aid to Families with Dependent Children (AFDC) program emerged, which provided financial assistance to single mothers. However, the program required mothers to name the father of their child, who was then pursued for child support payments. This system disproportionately affected Black families, who were more likely to rely on government assistance due to economic disparities and systemic racism. In the 1980s and 1990s, child support enforcement became a political priority, with the passage of the Child Support Enforcement Amendments of 1984 and the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, PRWORA, of 1996. These laws placed increased pressure on states to enforce child support payments, including punitive measures such as wage garnishment and incarceration for non-payment. However, these laws had unintended consequences for the Black community. Due to systemic racism and limited economic opportunities, many Black men were unable to pay the child support they owed, leading to mounting arrears and legal penalties. Black men were disproportionately affected by these enforcement measures, leading to increased rates of incarceration and economic and social disparities. Moreover, the child support system has a gender bias that favors mothers over fathers. Mothers are more likely to receive custody of their children, and the child support system often assumes that fathers are responsible for the majority of child rearing expenses. This has perpetuated negative stereotypes of Black fathers as deadbeats, and has contributed to the breakdown of families. In recent years, there have been efforts to reform the child support system and address its racial and gender biases. These include more realistic payment plans, increased support for job training and employment opportunities, and a shift away from punitive enforcement measures. However, more work needs to be done to ensure that the child support system is fair and equitable for all families, regardless of race or gender.